Commissioner Lavella, how do you feel about this application or something to try to make sure, especially that's important if you believe there's any chance there might be litigation on it. You want everybody to comment on the item and have that entered in the record, so that if it does go to court, then they can look back and see how you arrived at the conclusion that you did.
It's also important, so if a commissioner wants to make a comment, to ask the chair for permission to speak. It doesn't have to be quite that formal, but to say, Madam Chair, I have a comment about this, and the chairperson can then acknowledge who's speaking, because that is a more complete record, and it's a more orderly way to do it, and I believe that's all described in Robert's Rules of Order in so many words. But it's important to keep some order so there's just not three people talking at once, and if someone wants to speak, that the chair recognizes that person and says, go ahead, and I'll hear Commissioner Gilmore, go ahead, and I'll hear Commissioner Barber's comments after yours, just to maintain order.
Another thing you have to remember is that these minutes are the public record for the item, and you're recommending to the City Council. And so if you don't provide any discussion, the item may come before the council, and they have no idea what you were thinking. It could be something as simple as, well, I after listening to all the testimony tonight, I have some concerns about X, Y, and Z, but the staff and the applicant have addressed those, I think, satisfactory, and I would like to see this move forward, or just a little bit. You don't have to get all novel-like, but give some sort of 2 cents so that the council knows why you're for it or why you're against it, especially if you're voting in the minority of the rest of the group. It might be good to state why you are voting against it.
Or if you're voting to deny something.
Yeah.
Or if you're voting in opposition to the staff's recommendation. You want to provide reasons for that.
I feel strongly that this would impact the neighbors in a negative manner, and that's why I plan to vote against it. Just a little bit to bolster the case, and so the council really has a good picture of what happened tonight.
Here's the other thing too, and this is kind of touched on a little later, but if staff's written a report, if we made a recommendation to you, staff has gone through the reasons for their recommendation. They've presented the findings relative to what's in the code and what's in the statutes. If someone's making a motion for a decision that's in opposition to staff's recommendation, they need to provide some kind of basis for that. Findings to support that, or facts that would support a different statement of the findings. Because the decision, it's a quasi-judicial decision, and the decision needs to be based on facts and not just feelings. So it's all, I know it sounds complicated and it's intimidating, but do it a few times, and practice will make it a lot easier. It all kind of makes sense and comes together once you start getting into it. And we'll do our best to guide you. And one thing we'll have too, I fully expect that we'll have legal counsel attending our meetings to advise us, and that'll be helpful. So, are there any questions about any of this? Well, thanks for participating. I don't think anyone gets very excited when you say, "Hey, we're going to go through a kind of a hypothetical exercise or role playing." I don't particularly enjoy it. I'm not very good at it personally, but
I thought it was helpful.
Good.
honestly.
I agree.
Well, thank you for humoring us, if nothing else. So, quasi-judicial proceedings was part of the presentation made by Mary and Shannon. I probably, if I would have remembered what was in that video, I probably wouldn't have done this in such detail. But this is pretty important. I think it's kind of interesting as well. But, whoops. Okay, so the Planning Commission, that video kept referring to the City Council, but the same thing applies to the Planning Commission and especially the BZA. The Planning Commission and the BZA, or the BZA, they're acting as a judge when they're not creating or recommending a new policy, but applying policies according to existing regulations and applying the law to facts gathered at the hearing to arrive at their decision. So one question to ask, this is a fairly simple way to do it. Is it quasi-judicial? Yes, if the public hearing is required by law. Yes, if the decision affects specific parties and does not have area-wide impact. So specific parties, the applications that you're going to see will generally be for applying to specific parties and for specific sites and that type of thing. One thing that you might see in the future is a draft amendment to the zoning regulations. That's legislative in nature. You don't make the decision, you make a recommendation, but it has area-wide impact. So that's not really a quasi-judicial decision. So to follow procedural due process, the item gets fair consideration, gets proper notice of the hearing, proper hearing process, complete record, and the decision meets legal requirements and is based upon the record. A lot was talked about with regard to ex parte communications. Ex parte communications just means communications that's outside of the public hearing. That's the literal meaning of it, as I understand. Not all communication outside the public hearing is prohibited, but may create the perception of unfairness and bias. Generally, it's better just to avoid it. So just some recommendations about ex parte communications. Do not provide direction or opinion to staff or anyone else regarding a specific pending project. Do disclose any contacts you've had on the record. So let's say that you're at some event and someone came up to you and just started talking to you about a project, and you're trying to be polite and say, the first thing out of your mouth is not going to be, don't talk to me about this project. They're going to start talking to you about the project, possibly. And at some point you say, well, I really can't talk about this. It's better if I don't talk about it. So at the hearing, if you've had this conversation, and let's say someone else was at the event and they saw you talking about this project, it'd be important to disclose that you've had this conversation and disclose the nature of the conversation. Someone came up to me in a meeting or at an event and started telling me about this project, and I just listened and then politely said that I can't talk about this project. But you want to disclose it. Do make sure all decision makers, sure.
Is it okay to either confirm or deny that that project is in fact happening?
Yeah, I don't think that's...
I mean, if somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I heard that this is happening, can you say yes or no? Without
I don't...
discussing it?
Well,
As long as it's an active application in our office, that is public knowledge.
Public record.
Yeah, I've had
So-
people ask me if something went through, and I've told them.
Yeah.
I think that's fine.
I mean, before we get to vote on it, say we got our packet and somehow between Thursday and Tuesday somebody came up and said something, is it okay?
If somebody asks you, I know you're planning commissioner, is this item on the agenda for Tuesday? Yes.
Okay.
Yep. We've received an application.
You may say yes, but I cannot discuss it.
Now let's say that you've heard something from someone at the city about someone applying for something and they haven't really applied. It's better not to disclose that because it's really not public record. And it's a matter of debate, and I don't mean to...
Hearsay at that point.
It's hearsay, and it could negatively affect someone who